Welcome to tonight's workshop, all about single-use plastics. My name is James Taylor. I'm the Assistant Director at the Environmental Center. The Environmental Center is an academic center focused on environmental education and research. We have a number of programs that provide support to students and faculty. We'll provide a link in the chat to our website so you can learn more about our events. Some of our programs include a leadership program for undergraduate students that provide scholarships to those students while they implement community-based projects. Two of those students are from our leadership program. Wahid and Elena are actually helping with tonight's program. They'll be moderating our chat and letting people in as they arrive. They'll also be helping with a couple cleanups that are coming up soon. You can learn more about our leadership students by visiting our website. Again, we'll provide the link in the chat box. Also, if you're interested in being part of the leadership program, applications for next year will be available at the start of the fall semester. If you have any questions, you can go to our website and contact us directly beforehand. We also have a new interdisciplinary honor society for students interested in graduate school and environmental careers. I saw a few students from that honor society join already, so we were excited to have them on this call. The next meeting for that group is Wednesday, February 10th at 6 p.m. That meeting's open to everyone interested in learning about the organization. And then for the rest of the semester, all our events will be members only. Also, providing research grants to faculty that support the development of environmental research is one of our longest running and successful programs. Lastly, we also oversee the Environmental Studies minor that provides students with an opportunity to explore environmental coursework from all 5 colleges. Tonight's program on single-use plastic is part of a NOAA Marine Debris Program grant focused on reducing single-use plastics and fostering pro-environmental behaviors. The 2-year grant is a partnership between Eckerd College and the University of North Florida. I will now hand it over to Environmental Center Director and Public Health Faculty member, Dr. Erin Largo-White, to further discuss the NOAA grant.
Hello. Thank you, James. As James said, I'm Erin Largo-White. I'm a professor in the Department of Public Health at the University of North Florida, and I'm also the director of the UNF Environmental Center. I'm one of the co-PIs, principal investigators on this grant. We also have somebody else who's a co-PI. Maybe she'll wave to us. We have Dr. Heather Truelove, who's from the Department of Psychology. She's here. We are the 2 UNF researchers on this grant. We are also working, as James said, with colleagues from scientists from Eckerd College down south in St. Pete. And basically what we have is this is a 2-year research study. It has a lot of outreach and education components, and that's really what we're doing tonight. But our ultimate goal with this grant is we are looking to change behavior. So we're trying to do different strategies to affect attitudes, values, knowledge, and ultimately impact behavior on both campuses at UNF. There's Dr. Truelove. You want to give us a little? There she is. This, as James said, this study is funded by NOAA's Marine Debris Program. So our ultimate goal is to reduce marine debris. So we are 2 coastal universities, well, university and a college, and we are targeting our student populations. As I kind of mentioned too, we have lots of different strategies over the 2 years that we're working on to ultimately change behaviors. We have seminars and education and outreach. We're also working with faculty in terms of their curriculum. We also will have hands-on beach cleanups for everybody on campus to come and take part and be a part of that. And we have something called week-long plastic reduction challenges. So to give that challenge to students to say, hey, this week, try to refuse as much single-use plastic as you possibly can. So that's pretty much what we're doing in a nutshell. This discussion is our first discussion, our first part of the NOAA grant. So we're really excited and really thankful that Catherine and Oceana are here to talk to us and to educate us on what we can do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Erin Largo-White. A couple of notes before we start tonight's program. We encourage everyone to keep their cameras on during the event. However, please keep your microphone muted. our moderators will be muting anyone who accidentally unmutes themselves. We will have time for Q&A at the end of tonight's program. If you have a question, please put them in the chat box and we'll read them one by one at the end. If anything kind of comes up that is pertinent and maybe we need a little bit more explanation from our speaker, I'll try to interrupt and get that explanation. Otherwise, we'll wait to the end. If time permits, we may open the Zoom meeting at the very end for conversation. Lastly, as I mentioned before, tonight's program will be recorded and the recording will be available on our website and YouTube. Also, I'll mention that some of those other events that we were talking about, the cleanups, we placed in the chat a link to our website that has the 3 cleanups that will be coming up, the first on the 30th near Julington Durbin Preserve. It won't actually be at the trails, it'll be at one of the kayak launches. And that's coming up on the 30th. And then our other 2 events will be one in February and one in March. They will be limited in size, obviously due to COVID-19. We're hoping next year some of that will be not as much of a restriction. So without further ado, I will introduce our speaker for tonight. Catherine Uden is the campaign organizer for Oceana and South Florida. She has been involved in ocean and coastal conservation in South Florida for more than 10 years. She has experience in campaign management and grassroots organization, leading successful campaigns to reduce plastic pollution, protect coastal habitats, and ensure public beach access. She's currently working on Oceana's campaigns to stop seismic airgun blasting and offshore drilling in the Atlantic, ban the sale and trade of shark fins in the United States, reduce plastic pollution, and protect the Magnuson-Stevens Act, our nation's key fisheries law. Oceana is the world's largest international nonprofit organization that focuses solely on protecting the oceans through science-based policy work. Tonight, Catherine will discuss the plastic pollution problem in our oceans, and she assured me that she loves this topic and can talk about it forever. So we're glad she's so excited about it. She'll also discuss recent findings about animal deaths and entanglements caused by plastic and discuss solutions. So let's all give a warm, silent welcome to our speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for joining. It was mentioned, I'm very passionate about this topic. I've been volunteering on this issue for many years, even before I worked for Oceana. So please ask a lot of questions at the end. I have a long presentation, but I'm probably going to skip over a few slides to make it a little bit shorter, just in case we want to leave the end for questions and discussion. So I'm just going to share my screen and just if you can see it, just give me a little thumbs up. Good. Okay. So we're going to be talking about ending the plastic pollution crisis. I'm very excited that UNF has this grant and is going to be learning more about it and helping with this major problem that's global. So again, my name is Catherine Uden. I'm the South Florida campaign organizer for Oceana, and Oceana is the largest international nonprofit organization solely dedicated to protecting the oceans. And Oceana is worldwide, so we have offices globally, and each office works on its own set of campaigns depending on what their issues are in that nation. And I work on the North America campaigns, and our main office is in Washington, D.C. We have field organizers, field representatives in many of our coastal states here in the United States. And so I am one of the organizers here in South Florida. And these are just some examples of our campaigns. We work on overfishing, reducing bycatch, protecting habitat, increasing transparency, for example, seafood fraud, and curbing pollution with our plastic pollution campaign. So I work on all of our campaigns here in North America and rally support for them here in Florida. And plastic pollution is one of the campaigns, again, that I was working on even before Oceana. In my role as chair of Surfrider Foundation Broward County chapter, all of those chapters are all volunteer. So at the time, I was actually a teacher teaching for Broward schools for 15 years, and Surfrider Foundation was like a second job. I moved over. It was a very easy transition from Surfrider to Oceana, and I was working on a lot of ocean pollution plastic campaigns with Surfrider. So it was very easy to transition over. So what is the problem? Why are we working on this? This is a major global issue. All of our offices all around the world are working on this issue. Like I said, we work on different campaigns, but plastic is global. So we're all going to be working on this. Plastic is flooding our oceans. We are producing a lot of plastic. And the problem with plastic is it's made from a material that really, it's designed to last for centuries. And once it's in the ocean, it can cause major issues and also really doesn't kind of go away. It photodegrades into tinier and tinier pieces, and it's being ingested by even the smallest creatures in the ocean and really eventually entering our food chain. So this is a global problem that we really need to work on, and you're going to learn a little bit more about Oceana's philosophy about it and how we expect to tackle this problem. So a lot of people wonder, how does plastic get into the ocean? And there's a variety of ways. It isn't always just directly dumped into the ocean. So plastic on the streets can wash into storm drains that empty into the ocean. So kind of that phrase, all drains lead to the ocean. When we flick something out of the window and it goes onto the highway, it can go down the storm drains, through our canals, and out to the ocean. The wind and the rain can transport the plastic waste from landfills to streams and rivers. So even when it gets disposed of correctly, it can still make its way into waterways and into the ocean. And industrial products can be improperly disposed of or lost during transport. So we know here in Florida, we have many endangered and threatened marine life. This is some of our endangered sea turtles, and sea turtles are now being found, almost 100% of them, with plastic inside of them. So they're opportunistic feeders. They will kind of bite on things that are in the ocean, especially things that resemble their food. So green sea turtles, especially, they love jellyfish. A lot of sea turtles love jellyfish. It's one of their favorite foods. And when plastic bags are in the ocean, they try to eat it, and they can choke, become, either entangled or die from ingesting this plastic. And again, they're being found almost 100% of the time with plastic inside of them, even small sea turtle hatchlings. So this is a whale, and this whale came ashore and it had passed away, and this whale was opened up to see why, this whale died. These are the researchers that opened up the whale. They laid out the contents of the whale's stomach on a tennis court. And you can see on this tennis court, there were plastic bags, plastic sheeting. This is all plastic that was found inside the whale. And this is the reason why the whale died. This whale passed away because of all the plastic that it consumed. And this is becoming more and more common, where researchers are finding marine life filled with plastic. And it's not just animals in the ocean that are being found with plastic. So this is a bird, and it's called the albatross. And the albatross is on Midway Islands. The Midway Atolls are these remote islands in the Pacific. And there's nothing surrounding these islands. However, when these albatross go out and search for food, they're finding plastic floating in the ocean. They're eating the plastic. They're bringing the plastic back to their chicks. And these skeletons are being found all over the islands. The Midway Atolls, if you were to go there, these skeletons of these birds are all over these islands. So it's not just marine life that's being affected, it's other animals as well, especially seabirds. So Oceana came out with a study. Actually, we released this report in November. And if you go onto our website, usa.oceana.org, you can look at the full report and its findings. And this report, basically, they went to all of the government agencies and the manatee, organizations, and they compiled all of the research and data from these reports to find out where animals were being found that had been, entangled or swallowed or being killed by plastic, and also what types of animals. And kind of compiling this research into, where is this problem? What kind of animals are being affected? And 88% of the animals that were in this report were endangered or threatened under the Endangered Species Act. So 1,800 marine mammals had swallowed or become entangled in plastic in US waters since 2009. And in the cases where plastic ingestion was the likely cause of or contributor to death, 7 involved just one piece of plastic. So even one can make a difference, which is kind of why I got into beach cleanups and was doing so many beach cleanups. And whenever I go to the beach, I can't help but pass a piece of plastic and just envision an animal that has eaten it or become entangled in it. And I feel like if I don't pick it up, something is going to, suffer or die because of it. So it's a habit of mine that wherever I go, or, I stand up paddle, if I stand up paddle in the ocean and I see a piece of plastic floating, I have to pick it up and put it in my pocket or something, because this is a huge problem in our oceans. 700 endangered Florida manatee were in this report. So manatees, sea turtles, seals and sea lions, baleen and toothed whales. And Florida had a lot of cases, I think the most number of cases. And if you look at this picture, you can see the little sea turtle hatchling in this tiny little plastic ring. And again, if I see a tiny little plastic ring on the sand, I'm envisioning an animal, a little sea turtle trapped in it. So it's just a good habit to get into, to make sure that we pick up when we go to the beach and really anywhere. Because like I said, you don't have to be at the beach for plastic to make its way into the ocean. And again, 88% of the animals were endangered or threatened with extinction. And there's a picture of a dolphin with a Frisbee stuck around it. So this is what happens when plastic gets into the ocean. Less dense plastics float on the ocean surface. What can also happen is, like I said, it breaks into smaller pieces, microplastics, because it photodegrades by the sun. And so you can imagine in that picture how difficult it would be to clean up plastic in the ocean. A lot of people say, well, why don't we just find a way to clean it all up? It would be very difficult to impossible to do that. Some of the plastic sinks and makes its way through the water column. Some are ingested by zooplankton and fish, so the tiniest creatures in the ocean, like I said, making its way into our food chain, and some eventually ends up on the seafloor. And what's kind of gross is microplastics have also been found in humans for the first time. So it's being found in human stool, humans that either eat seafood or drink or eat out of plastic. And the scientists are doing a lot of studies now on how this is affecting our health to be consuming so much plastic. Globally, companies produce more than 400 million tons of plastics every year. And an estimated 17.6 billion pounds of plastic enters the marine environment from land-based sources every year. And that's 8 million metric tons, roughly the equivalent to dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every minute. So you can imagine the more plastic we produce, the more is going to end up in the ocean. And a lot of people also kind of want to point to other nations as the cause and the main issue. But a lot of people are surprised to find out that the US is responsible for some of the highest plastic inputs to the ocean in the world. We rank third. And the US generates more plastic waste than any other country in the world. We're actually #1 for plastic production. So what is driving this problem? Why are we making so much plastic? Well, it's because of cheap natural gas from fracking, the abundance of cheap natural gas. So we all know, most people know about fracking. Fracking is, obviously harmful to the environment. This is from the Natural Resources Defense Council. Plastic production, we have to use these harmful chemicals in fracking fluid to break the rock and get this natural gas out of the ground. Releasing a lot of methane. There's a lot of greenhouse gases that go into this. So again, a lot of people don't connect plastic with climate change, but we're trying to make people think about that. And any conversation about climate change, you really need to be talking about plastic, because plastic is fossil fuels. It pollutes from the time we have to extract it from the ground. So every time we, again, have a conversation about climate change and how to reduce greenhouse gases, plastic production needs to be a part of that conversation. So I recently wrote this opinion piece for The Invading Sea, and it was, again, trying to connect plastic production with greenhouse gases. And a lot of people don't know that basically the life cycle of plastic, it emits so many greenhouse gases, it's twice as much as the aviation sector. So again, we really need to connect plastic with climate as much as we can. This graphic is from the Center for International Environmental Law, kind of giving you a picture of the greenhouse gases, comparing it to coal plants, all of these emissions from the plastic life cycle. We need to think that we can't just be thinking about the end of the plastic life cycle and the waste that's produced from it and how are we going to recycle it and is it ending up in the ocean. We really need to think about how we're not going to produce so much, because even just the beginning of the life cycle is polluting. So we were trying to shift the conversation from the end of the waste cycle to the beginning and just reducing it at the source. This is plastic production. This is what it's expected to do by 2050, and it's expected to quadruple. So, you know, again, when we're talking about the future growth of plastic production, the more you produce, the more is going to end up in the ocean. Now, if we look at global plastics production and we look at what we're producing with plastic, 36% is packaging. So again, there's certain useful, you know, things that we need plastics for, right, in the medical field. But there's a lot that we're producing that's plastic that we can completely avoid and reduce. So 36% is packaging, and that's the biggest piece of the plastic pie. And that is single-use material that's designed for immediate disposal. So things like single-use plastic utensils, plastic bottles, plastic cups, all of these food containers. These are the things that we are going to target because that's a big piece of the plastic pie and they're easily reduced. We can find alternatives or things that are reusable. So you were talking about beach cleanups, and I've done 1,000,000,001 beach cleanups and hosted them. And, you know, I think that's the reason why I became so passionate about this issue, is because when you clean up all this stuff over and over again, you just get so tired of it that, you know, and a lot of things that you're looking at are things that could have been avoided. So the Ocean Conservancy does a cleanup every year called the International Coastal Cleanup. And they ask their participants to use an app called Clean Swell. And people download the app, Clean Swell, and every time they pick something up, they tick off what they're picking up. And it helps them collect useful data of what is a problem, what items are we collecting, what items are in our waterways and our oceans and our beaches. So these are the items that are most commonly found according to their data: straws, stirrers, the utensils, bottles, bags, cups. And if you look at these things, you notice they're single use. They're only used for maybe a minute or two, a couple minutes. And they're also things that probably could have been avoided. We could have used something reusable, or we could have used something that's more, you know, ocean friendly. Maybe we could have used a wooden utensil, a wooden spoon instead of you know, plastic. So these are the things that we really want to target and see how we can reduce, and working on policy, because that's what Oceana does. So these are Oceana's campaign goals, and they're to pass policies to reduce plastic use. So that's on the local, state, and federal levels. Most of our, well, actually all of our campaigns at Oceana are federal, but plastic is our only campaign where we work at the local, state, and federal levels. We would like to create plastic-free zones. So I was talking earlier about how we actually would love to work with universities on creating a plastic-free campus, plastic-free pledges, and also asking companies to offer us plastic-free choices. Now, a lot of people look to recycling as, you know, the answer to the plastic problem, and recycling actually only solves 2% of the problem. And that's because only about 9% of the plastic ever produced has been recycled, 9%. And if you dive deeper into that, it's usually downcycled. So it's maybe made into one or two other things, maybe some carpet, you know, and then it's done, right? So, you know, recycling is really not the answer. And if you look at the, you know, plastic, how the plastic is going to quadruple, we really are not going to be able to recycle our way out of this problem. And again, thinking back to the beginning of the plastic life cycle, we really need to think about not producing it and taking it out of the ground in the first place. So what else threw a wrench into it? Well, China, a lot of people used to think that when you put things in the recycle bin, it's going to magically get recycled in the United States into something else. Maybe it's going to get turned into a park bench. You know, all of my plastic that I put in the bin gets recycled. We actually used to ship all of our plastic to China. So China in 2018 banned the import of plastic waste. They had a national, I think it was called National Sword Program. And they said, we are not going to accept plastic waste from the United States or any other countries. We weren't the only country that had this issue. So people were out of sight, out of mind, shipping all the plastic to China and other nations like Malaysia, Philippines. And they obviously could not handle all of that plastic waste from our country and from many other countries. So a lot of that plastic waste was not recycled. Maybe it wasn't valuable, maybe it was dirty, maybe there was too much of it. I think some nations were even sending to illegal recycling plants, but a lot of this waste ended up in the ocean. So, a lot of times, I get upset when people see, nations, underdeveloped countries and places dumping their plastic into the ocean when I know that that was our plastic, right? People are saying, oh, they dump all their plastic into the ocean. A lot of that plastic was ours. So we were shipping it away, and a lot of nations, including ours, is kind of stuck. They're wondering, how are we gonna do this? And a lot of plastic ends up either incinerated or buried in the landfill. So a lot of people look at incineration as a solution as well. And incineration is often misrepresented as renewable. So people call it waste to energy, but I've also heard people call it waste of energy. And that's because incineration, you have to burn a lot of waste, a lot of garbage in order to produce a very small amount of energy. It's not efficient. It releases toxic emissions. It releases greenhouse gases. And I think when it's done, you have this toxic ash left over. So we really don't want to look to incineration as a solution either, especially when you're talking about, the life cycle and not releasing the methane and fracking in the first place. So one quote from Jackie Savitz at Oceana is, imagine your bathtub overflowing. Your bathtub is overflowing with plastic. You're not going to run for a mop before you turn off the faucet. And recycling is the mop, and we need to turn off the faucet. So looking at the beginning of the life cycle. So a lot of places and companies are stepping up recently. If you try to live without plastic, it's very difficult. Even for somebody, like me, that's very conscious of it. A lot of times we're not given plastic-free choices. We go to the store and all of the shampoo is in plastic bottles, right? If I want a shampoo bar that doesn't have any packaging, I have to go to a specialty store. Or if I want disposable utensils that are wooden and not plastic, I have to order them online. I can't just go to my local grocery store and get it. So living without plastic is very difficult because we're often not given the choice. So we definitely need more choices, right? And we need our government to help push these policies that will, force them to give us choices because we all want to try to live without less plastic. So this is Marks and Spencer. It's a grocery store in England, and they were launching plastic-free produce aisles and green grocers. And then some airlines were stepping up, and some airlines were offering flights without single-use plastics alternatives. And many nations were stepping up. So many nations were enacting national policies. They were banning single-use plastics nationwide. And you can see in 2016, it really jumped up due to all of the coverage on our 5 gyres, the ocean, the plastics in the ocean. So, I know that I think Scotland really just recently banned single-use plastics, Jamaica, Bahamas, a lot of nations, Costa Rica, I think Kenya banned plastic bags, Rwanda banned plastic bags, India banned plastics, and I know there were McDonald's in India that were using wooden utensils. So, these policies create change. They force the companies to do better. Now, plastic. So plastic bags, shopping bags, we get like an unlimited supply of free plastic bags at the grocery store if we want to. Most nations don't do that. Most nations either ban plastic bags or they put a fee on each bag. In the United States, we obviously don't have a national policy, and some states do have a bag ban, but there are some states, if you look at the green ones, that are preemption states. So unfortunately, Florida is one of the preemption states, and preemption means that not only do we not have a bag ban, but we are banned from banning bags. So that means that even if your city wants to do something about it, they can't. There's a law, a preemption law that says you are not allowed to regulate plastic bags. We also have a law that says we are not allowed to ban polystyrene foam. A lot of people miscall polystyrene foam styrofoam. But there are ways to get around it, but you can't tell a store or a business that they can't use plastic bags or they can't use foam. You can ban things on your own city property, and your own parks and your beach, but you can't tell businesses not to do it. We are obviously trying to overturn this, repeal this at the state level. So municipalities in Florida that have taken action on single-use plastics, this is a list and the list is growing. So what we do is we figure out what legally are we allowed to do locally while we're waiting on state action and waiting for federal action. And like I said, there are certain items that are not preempted. For example, your city can ban single-use plastic utensils. And that means that no store would be able to sell them, no restaurant would be able to hand them out, and that would force them to stock alternatives. They can ban straws. There's no preemption against straws. The state did try to have a preemption against straws. Luckily, Governor DeSantis vetoed that law. It did pass, but Governor DeSantis vetoed it. So that means you can still pass laws on straws. And you can ban the bags and the foam and certain things on city property and in your city contracts. So what we're working on nationwide is a federal bill. The federal bill we were working on is called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, and that was the Senate number and House number. And this would do a variety of things. It would require nationwide container refunds. So that would mean that maybe you pay an extra 5-10 cents for your bottle, and then you get a refund when you return it. So that basically incentivizes people not to litter it and to put it in the right bin and to recycle it because they get their money back. It would phase out certain polluting products. It would create a carry-out bag fee, which most nations have. It would have a minimum recycled content requirement. It would improve recycling and composting. We would stop shipping our recycling waste to other nations. It would protect existing state actions. It would put a temporary pause on new plastics facilities and just put more producer responsibility for collection and recycling. So that means it's not all on us to figure out how we're going to recycle all this plastic. It's going to be on the companies that are trying to pump it out to us, right? And the temporary pause on new plastics facilities is also important because it's a huge social justice issue. There's a neighborhood in Louisiana nicknamed Cancer Alley because of the high rates of cancer from the petrochemical companies. And these are, minority communities, low income communities, and, they want to build more plastic facilities there. So, it's causing air pollution and we really want to put a halt on this, especially when there's so much plastic that we can reduce easily. On a state level, again, we have some preemptions, plastic bags and foam. What can be done about these state preemptions? Well, just like last year, there's a repeal bill that's been proposed, and you can ask your state reps, your state senators, the governor to support this repeal bill. And that would basically remove that part of the law that says cities can't do this, right? So that would give power back to the local communities. And we encourage people to get in touch with their state representatives and ask them to support that. In your Florida city, you can prohibit the use of certain single-use plastics on city properties, city-owned facilities, city contracts, and events. I know my city here in Hollywood, we just banned single-use plastics throughout the city. That ordinance has not kicked in yet, but it will be for all city property, parks, the beach, and you won't be able to use single-use plastics. So that's what we're doing here. Fort Lauderdale also just passed a ban on foam on their city property and in their contracts. So that means any city vendors or any city events aren't going to be foam free. You can prohibit plastic bottled water on your city property. The Village of Miami Shores last year passed a law that said no plastic bottled water in their parks or in their facilities. So that means that all of their events and everything, you would have to either use a reusable bottle or something glass, boxed water, aluminum bottled water, something not plastic. You can also ban single-use plastic items that don't fall under the preemptions, so utensils, straws, and things like that. You can also pass a law that says straws by request only. So that means that every drink wouldn't get a straw, you would only get one if you need it. Now, one of the things that people can do is to lobby where you live. So lobby meetings don't always have to be at the state capitol or in the halls of Congress. So you are a voter and the person that you vote for represents you. And lobbying just means telling your elected official what you care about and what you want them to do, right? So, if you have a local elected official, state elected official, member of Congress, just call their office and just tell them how you feel, maybe set up a phone meeting and let them know, because otherwise, our representatives will say, well, I didn't know that my constituents cared about that, right? So this is a picture of 2 high school students that started a club in their high school right here in Broward, South Broward High School, and it was called the Plastic Free Mermaids. And we had a March for the Ocean event. It was really fun. We were educating the community and had like an ocean festival. And this is our state senator, Gary Farmer, in the yellow. and our mayor, Josh Levy in the blue shirt, and our county commissioner, Beam Fur, in the blue hat. And so we are lobbying our elected officials, letting them know we care about plastic, this is what we want. And we actually ended up having some really good progress with reducing plastics here in Hollywood because of all of the attention we gave it and always inviting our elected officials to our events. So what you can do today is you can go to plasticfreefl.org, and that's information specifically for Florida. And that website will basically have every bit of information you would need to take action on your local, state, and federal levels. It has some good news articles on there. It has sample legislation that you can share and lots of really good facts. You could send an email to your mayor, city commissioner, county commissioner, state representative, state senator, your members of Congress, your president of your university, asking them to reduce plastics. And I was saying that Student Pergs is a really good organization that's been working with universities on reducing their plastic. They create campus plastic-free pledges that they can help you work on and present to your president. And you can also sign our letters to Congress. All of our letters to Congress are at that website, usa.oceana.org, take action. And when you sign that and put in your address, it will go straight to your members of Congress, depending on your address. So those are very useful petitions there. So it just basically comes down to what future that we want. I have 2 children. I have one in college at FSU, and I have one that's in 6th grade. And I think about the planet that they're inheriting. And, you know, I want them to inherit a clean, healthy planet with healthy ocean. We all need the ocean. I tell people whether you like the ocean or not, we all need it, right, to survive. And we really need to start taking care of it now. We don't want to wait till things get worse. And if you want to follow Oceana, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's my email there if you have any questions or want to get involved. Again, we are international, so we have Oceana, and then we have the Oceana in Florida that has state-specific information. And again, that's our website to be able to sign our petitions. So that is it, and I can open it up to questions and discussion.
Thank you so much, Catherine. As Wahid just put in the chat, please, if you have questions, I haven't seen any come in yet. But before we jump into the questions, and Catherine did such a great segue that she didn't even realize she did, we actually have a representative from a new PERG chapter here at UNF. And PERG is Public Interest Research Groups. I had to confirm that the other day because I had never actually heard of PERG chapters. But Madeline, who I will unmute, is going to do a quick little pitch because they are starting a new chapter here. Sorry, let me just unmute. A new chapter here at UNF, and I think a lot of the other universities already have chapters, so it's exciting to see one come to UNF.
Hello, can everyone hear me and everything? Give me like a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Hi, so I'm Madeline Trudeau. This is my 2nd year at as a student, my 1st semester at UNF. I am an intern with Student PERG. I'm looking for okay, so I've got 2 goals this semester. First of all, I'd really like to turn efforts towards environmental protections, but I'd also like to put voters registration onto freshman orientation. And so that's kind of where I'm going with it. And hopefully I'd like to host some educational events as well. I was kind of just put into this position. And so the opportunities are endless. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I can't do it alone. So if there's any students out there, I'm going to put a link in the chat. So if you're interested in joining me, I would be so excited. Yeah, that's
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll be sending out, for those students that are in the environmental studies minor, we'll be sending out some notices from Madeline and the group there. And I'm sure you'll find some other tidbits here and there, but she'll put something in the chat in just a moment. I still haven't seen any questions, so I'll kind of start by just, I have a question and a comment, but the first comment, actually, we have a couple. So Dr. Chamberlain from the Honors College, oh, actually I'll go with Erin first because Erin, our president of the KOA Honor Society is here with us. And she asked, has there been any progress in the removal of microplastics in any sort of way?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an expert about the removal of microplastics. I know that Congressman Brian Mast in the kind of Jupiter area and North Palm Beach area was working on a bill that had to do with microplastics and studying kind of where they were coming from and if there was a way to stop it and clean it up. So I think he's working on that. You know, microplastics can come from a variety of things, not just the photodegrading, but it can also come from your clothes, right? So if your clothes have microplastics, it can go out your wash. And there's different ways that, you know, people were working on that in the washing machine. I know they were, you can install a filter that will catch the fibers before they go out. There was something, I remember seeing some kind of coral ball that went in the dryer that might catch some of the fibers while it's in the dryer. There's bags that, you know, I know Patagonia was using a guppy bag where you can put clothes in it and it would keep the fibers in there. But microplastics are a huge issue. And like I said, it's difficult to impossible to think about cleaning up all the microplastics in the ocean. When people think about the 5 gyres, those 5 gyres, I don't know if you all are familiar with those kind of like washing machines in the ocean where this plastic is kind of stirring around. A lot of people think of very large pieces of plastic when a lot of it is just microplastics that, you know, have been caused by photodegrading. So we really want to just try to, again, try to deal with it on a, you know, just working at it from the source, because, you know, trying to think about how we're going to clean it all up is just either, you know, so difficult to impossible that, you know, and why are we going to think about that? When you think about the bathtub overflowing, why are we going to think about mopping it up when we have not even turned off the faucet? We really need to deal with the source of the problem first. So that's what Oceana is working on.
Excellent. So the next question was from Dr. Chamberlain, our Dean of the Honors College. Catherine, there are more alternatives to plastics, silicone, beeswax, etc. Are some options better than others?
Yeah, some options are better than others. Obviously, the first thing we would turn to is reusable. And reusable, again, reusable cups. When I go to Starbucks or, you know, coffee places, I make sure I bring my own cups so that we don't create waste at all. Because any waste, even if it's, you know, environmentally friendly, is going to create greenhouse gases when it's in the landfill. So any kind of waste we can reduce, period, is a good thing. If we can use reusable, you know, that's the best option. If I go to a, you know, picnic or a party and I know we're going to eat, I bring my own utensils. I bring my own bamboo utensils. If I go out to eat and I think there's going to be leftovers, I bring my own container. You know, so, you know, just making sure that we try to reduce waste, period. If we're going to turn to something that needs to be disposable, there are alternatives. And there are, for example, if I was doing utensils, I would not use those bioplastics where it kind of looks like plastic, but it's made from plants. Even though that's not, you know, plastic, it still breaks down almost the same way in a marine environment. And, you know, almost, you know, kind of not even, it's not a great alternative. What I would use if I had to use disposable utensils is bamboo or wooden utensils, which are going to break down naturally in the environment. If you look on that website that I told you guys about, plasticfreefl.org, there's a page that says business involvement. And under business involvement, there will be some resources there, some websites created to guide you in the right direction as far as alternatives. And business owners, it'll tell restaurant owners what to order, different kinds of materials. And it even has a reusable calculator. So businesses can see how much money they would save in the long run if they just used, especially if they have on-site dining, if they used reusable things versus disposable.
Excellent. And I am so glad you have a bone to pick with bioplastics, because good intentions but maybe in 50 years when we can compost
And
them.
I found bioplastic cups floating in the ocean, and it says greenware on the bottom, but it looks like a plastic cup and it's behaving like a plastic cup in the ocean, but it says greenware. So yeah, there's a lot of greenwashing out there. You have to be really careful. There are some bags, you know, business owners, they were buying oxo-degradable bags, and oxo-degradable, it sounds very green, but it just means that it's a plastic bag that breaks down faster in oxygen, which we don't, it just breaks down into little microplastics. So you have to be really careful and really research what you're buying. I know I have a dog, so I use, you know, I have waste bags, and I make sure that I try to find the ones that are truly, you know, compostable in a landfill and are going to break down in dirt and that kind of thing. So, you know, really do your research when you're looking at products.
This question is from Megan, and it is one of my favorite questions during events like this. How did you get into your career? What were the steps you took to get where you are today?
So I was teaching for Broward schools for 15 years, all elementary. And while I was teaching, I really got into stand-up paddling. And when I was stand-up paddling, especially in the Fort Lauderdale Intracoastal, I would end up with a mountain of garbage on my board every time because I would constantly be scooping up garbage and putting it on my board. And so then I got involved with my local Surfrider Foundation chapter, Surfrider Broward. I started volunteering at their beach cleanups, helping them organize things, got kind of roped into being on the board, and then took over the chapter as chair. And I was chair for about 2 years, passing plastic ordinances and working on campaigns here in Broward. And while I was doing that, I had a friend that also used to be in Surfrider, and her name is Erin Handy, lives in Jacksonville. And she had moved over to Oceana, and they needed somebody in the South Florida area. She knew that I had been teaching for 15 years, somewhat burnt out. And she saw everything that I was doing for Surfrider, and she said, you know, you'd be perfect. It's kind of a lot of, Oceana's starting their plastics campaign, and you're already doing that, you know, on a volunteer basis. So we'd love for you to come over. So she encouraged me to apply, and that's how I did it. It's a lot different. Their organizations, even though we work on some of the same issues, both work on offshore drilling and things like that, it's still very different. So it was a little bit of an adjustment going over to Oceana, but you know, they provided really good training. It's a great organization, and I have field team in different states that, you know, we rely on and meet with all the time. So that's how I got into it.
And our last question so far is from Cheyenne. I have encouraged people to use paper, wood, bamboo, etc. as an alternative, and they respond with, but isn't it bad to tear down trees to produce that stuff? How would you respond?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it is. Bamboo is actually really sustainable though. Bamboo is a grass, it's not a tree, right? So bamboo is, you know, it replaces itself, it replenishes itself, and it's very sustainable. I would say wood, I agree, right? Use less paper, use less trees. That's why I always say reusable first. And if you can't do reusable, then choose something that's not going to harm animals or harm the environment if it accidentally gets into the environment. So yes, some of that, you know, is still bad, but if the paper gets into the ocean, it's not going to kill a sea turtle, kill a, you know, dolphin. It's going to break down faster and not harm wildlife. Excellent.
And then since before everyone had some questions, I had a comment and a question. The first, I don't know if you've looked at the chat, but when you shared the information about the cleanups and the data, I posted an article in the chat that I didn't know this, but for 34 years, cigarette butts were the most littered item, and that dubious honor has been overtaken by plastic wrappers and food packaging. And so that's kind of a interesting, I don't know if it's a reversal, but trend in a bad way.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to
what's interesting about cigarette butts, a lot of people don't realize that those are not degradable for a really long time as well. So those are still harmful to the environment. They take a long time to degrade. You know, people don't really think about it very much when they flick it out the window, but again, it can go into the storm drains and out to the ocean. There is a bill in Tallahassee. I think it's similar to the one that was proposed last year by Gruters, and he's saying that the bill would, if I remember correctly, ban smoking in state parks and allow municipalities to ban it on their beaches if they want to, because right now that's preempted. So if a city wants to ban smoking on their beach, they're not allowed to. It's another preemption. So this would basically give power back to the local communities and ban smoking in state parks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And those cigarette butts usually contain a whole host of toxins that go into not just the butt itself, but all that tar and nicotine and different things. So a lot of problems there. And then my question was, I was really intrigued about your plastic water bottle bans in parks and other public facilities. And I was curious if there's been any effort to couple that with more access to drinking water, like water fountains and hydration stations, as an equitable way to provide water to people who maybe can't afford $1.50 or $2 for bottled water.
Yeah, 100%. So in the Village of Miami Shores, as part of that ordinance, they said they were making it an effort to provide more water bottle refill stations in their public facilities and in their parks. I know they're becoming increasingly more common. I think most airports that I remember going to recently had water bottle refill stations where you could refill them. Miami Beach, they have something called Whoosh. That's basically a water bottle refill station that you can basically, I think you pay into it, or it's like a program where, you know, you can even have a key fob and you swipe it and it cleans your bottle and you can fill it. So that's in Miami Beach. There's different ways of doing it, but I definitely would advocate for water bottle refill stations where people can refill. That's a huge component of it.
Excellent. And as most of you probably know, we have a number of water bottle filling stations here, and somewhat ironically, Pepsi actually helped us install them. So I'm not necessarily giving a shout out to Pepsi, but you know, it's kind of an interesting partnership that they had with us to provide access to drinking water, in addition to obviously some of the vending machines they provide. So we look to install those as many as we can each year. And I don't know if we've done any in the last couple of years, but we've done, I think, over 30 or 40 of them throughout campus.
Yeah, and personally, I'm not picky about my, but just because I hate plastic so much that I would have to be, you know, thirsty in the desert for 3 months before I bought a plastic bottle of water. So I drink tap water all the time. And I've trained my kids that before we go out of the house, you always fill up your water bottle wherever you go, that just getting them in that habit young is really, really important. My younger son, I gave up plastic shopping bags when he was a baby, like before he was a year old. He's 12 now. So he doesn't remember us ever using plastic shopping bags or bringing them into the house. Grocery store, he is appalled by, he's like, why are people using all these plastic bags? So just getting kids into the habit very early of taking things with them. Bring your fork, bring your spoon, bring your container, bring your bottle is a good thing to do.
Yes, it's habit. That's what I always tell people. And I also, when I talk to students a lot, they beat themselves up sometimes about not having it. And so it's not a race to 100% conformity. Every time you can do it is a step in the right direction. So, you know, try to do one thing at a time and get that into a habit. I started by using just plastic or reusable bags just through a stack in my car. So they're always there. And then that, you know, moved on to water bottles, well, reusable water bottles and little steps like that.
Yeah,
Working on cutlery though, that's
one thing at a time. It's a really good thing, one thing at a time. And then when you've mastered that, you can try something else. I started with the bags, and then it's like the straws, and then I moved on to now it's the, you know, personal care products. So I make sure I try to buy a shampoo and toothpaste that's not in plastic. I buy these things called bites that are these toothpaste tablets. They're almost like a little aspirin, and you pop it in your mouth and chew it, and it turns into toothpaste in your mouth. So just various things that are plastic free. Yeah, it's just a very good habit to get into.
Excellent. And then we have one more question I missed from Dr. Chamberlain. It's a little bit of a sassy one, but are organizations like 4Ocean making much of a difference? And if you're not familiar, I believe 4Oceans is the one that makes, I don't even think they use recycled plastic, but they make plastic water or plastic wristbands that they then donate money to causes. I believe.
I don't know a whole lot about the bracelets or the content that it's made out of, but I know that they do a lot of cleanups. What I was really happy with recently is I hadn't seen much advocacy, but they put out a statement to, I think, all their supporters, and they put out a blog that they were supporting the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. So the fact that they were advocating for the federal policy and trying to get that information out there, I was very happy to see them do that because they have a huge following.
Excellent. And that's the end of our questions, and it's just about 7, so that works perfectly. I'm going to hang out for just a minute. I think our speaker is too. I'll allow people to unmute themselves if they just want to thank the speaker after we conclude. But we'll just be on for a few more minutes, like 5 minutes or so, just in case you want to say thank you or ask any additional questions. And I thank everyone for coming. And let's another silent round of applause for our speaker.
Thanks. Oh, and one thing I wanted to add, just to give another little plug to Surfrider Foundation, is when I was part of the Broward chapter, we replicated a program that was initially in San Diego, but now all the chapters do it. It's called Ocean Friendly Restaurants. And if you ever want to work on that, Ocean Friendly Restaurants is basically a checklist for restaurants that, you know, once you meet a certain number of criteria, you're deemed an ocean friendly restaurant. You can be listed on the website. And I try to support those restaurants. So I try to support restaurants that don't use plastic bags, don't use foam, you know, recycle, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, making sure that I also put it on my online reviews. So I make sure that I tell the restaurant owner and the chain and in my reviews, I came to your restaurant because I knew you were not using a lot of plastic, so that they know it matters to you, it matters to customers, and that they should, you know, keep on doing it. So look up ocean friendly restaurants.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you again for speaking to our group. And I'll be providing this online if anybody wants to share it with their friends after tonight.